Hello YouTube, the John Vanderveer here. Today I'm going to talk about what is a worldview and why do we need it. What is a worldview and what is its significance? So of course I'm going to cite Wikipedia, dictionary.com, a couple other places of course, and then I'm going to give you a couple of just my commentary. So let's start with dictionary.com. If you go to dictionary.com and type in worldview, there is no definition. Instead, there is an entry which says that it is an English noun and it is the translation of the German, let's see if I can say this right, Weltanschauung. Weltanschauung. I didn't know that. Apparently it originated in the 1850s. So I opened Weltanschauung in a new tab, still at dictionary.com. It has an English definition for the German word. This is noun. It's in German, and it is a comprehensive conception or image of the universe and humanity's relation to it. So, it's what we think about the universe comprehensively, all-inclusively, and what we think about ourselves all-inclusively, and how they relate. Now, this is not saying how they should relate or what the universe really is or what we really are. It is our perception of reality. Another definition says a comprehensive view or personal philosophy of human life and the universe, still on dictionary.com. Let's go over to Wikipedia. A comprehensive worldview or worldview is the fundamental cognitive orientation of an individual or society encompassing the entirety of the individual or society's knowledge and point of view, including philosophy, blah, 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 emotions, blah, blah, blah. The term is a calque of the German word Weltanschauung, which is composed of Welt, which means world, and Anschauung, which means view or outlook. And it originated as a fundamental concept to German philosophy, blah, blah, blah. Additionally, it refers to the framework of ideas and beliefs through which an individual, group, or culture interprets the world and interacts with it. So, I don't know why it said additionally on Wikipedia. I guess people can write whatever they want on Wikipedia. To me, that last sentence was just a rehashing, a concise rehashing of the longer introduction. The framework of ideas and beliefs through which an individual, group, or culture interprets the world and interacts with it. So, why is this important? No, before we get to why it's important, I'm going to give you a couple other non-Wikipedia. We'll go to dkeneer.com, D-K-E-E-N-E-R.com. This was just a Google top result. A worldview is how you look at the world, how you think it operates, why things happen the way you do, and what your purpose is. And logically, your behaviors, actions, motivations, etc. should be consistent with your worldview. That statement you don't find in these definitions in this Wikipedia, that your behaviors, actions, motivations should be consistent with your worldview. Well, this is a connotation, not a denotation of the word. And why does that connotation exist? Let me tell you why. That is because the assumption that creates this logical output. You can't have a logical output without underlying assumptions. So the assumption that leads to this logical output is that people seek to maximize their utility. What that means is people want the best for themselves. And so we should be consistent with our worldview in order to maximize our own utility, in order to get the best for ourselves. Why? Let me tell you why. The answer is that anything you do, any process of creation, say you're building a chair, it has three traits: what you're doing, how you're doing it, and why you're doing it. You can also say like when and where and all that stuff, but that's really unessential if you're only looking at your ability to do what you want. Your ability to do what you want is determined by what you're doing, how you're doing it, and why you're doing it. Like I said, the assumption is the why ultimately goes to you're serving your own ends. So the question is, what is that ends? Well, your worldview answers that question. But the what and how are also related to the worldview. What are you doing? I'm sawing a chair. Okay. You see that you have decided to do this in order to accomplish your why. Your worldview takes your why and tells you what. So in other words, you wouldn't be sawing a chair with the intention of creating a chair. I mean, you wouldn't be sawing wood with the intention of creating a chair if your worldview hadn't told you that the first step to creating a chair was to saw some wood. And how. The how is also important. Whenever you're doing something, there are often, not every time, I shouldn't say every time, but when you're doing something, there are often several ways to go about it. Which way do you choose? Well, your worldview answers that question. It says that given your understanding of the world and given what your desire is, you are able to take these two into your brain and logically deduce the most appropriate course of action for yourself. Now, this does presume that you have perfect logic and the perfect ability to observe and ascertain knowledge, which is false. No one is perfectly logical. You can lack a worldview and still act. But the point is not that you need a worldview to act. The point is that you need a worldview to act correctly. And then the question is, what is correctly? And the answer is, well, you need to have a worldview to determine that. So you see, the worldview is really properly basic. It is what you build upon. Often people build upon this worldview without being aware of their worldview. But we should be aware of our worldview, because once we're aware of it, we can correct it if it needs correction. Possibly it doesn't. Although I find that idea unlikely. But once we're aware of it, we can work with it and develop a consistency. And it's not that the consistency is necessary for life. It's not that the consistency is necessary for action. But consistency is necessary for efficiency. And that's the point. Because to be right in an objective sense, when we're talking about any sort of practical matter, we are essentially being efficient. Now, I'm not a utilitarian, don't get me wrong, but as you'll see in some of my other videos, it's all about consequentialism. You act towards an end. You don't act for the sake of acting, like Kant would have you think. And you can go watch my other video on white lies, consequentialism, or categoricalism. And that would be a different part of this series. But presuming the truth of that video, if you buy that, then you should buy this. If it's about consequentialism, you need to know what's your goal. The worldview is your ideas of yourself, your ideas of the world, and how they interact, your understanding of all that, and the connotation is how you should use those to get to your goal. So it's ultimately the end game for anyone who's a consequentialist. And go watch my other video and even if you don't end up a consequentialist in ideology from that video, I'm fairly sure you'll still end up a practical consequentialist. Take care, YouTube.